Oh, wait, he's not dead? No, I'm not. What's up, guys? It's your boy Izzy. And I know it's been a long time since you've seen me, and all of a sudden I pop up with an Arsenal versus Wolverhampton review. No. It had been a very tough end to the season for me because I was trying to juggle three different things. I was trying to juggle these videos, I was trying to juggle school, and I was trying to juggle a move, and I was also trying to juggle my 9 to 5. It was a very busy period in my life, and I wasn't able to put out videos like that. First of all, the move was very hectic. It was in short notice, and I had to find a place pretty quickly. I was able to find this new place, and now I'm a little bit more settled and just in time to be able to talk about football. The other thing was my grades were slipping a little bit, and I needed to pay a lot more attention to school. And right around the same dip that Arsenal had at the Aston Villa loss was around the same time that I needed to hunker down because I was also about to lose out on the title. Now, eventually it all ended up well for me, and I was able to do well in both my classes, but it wasn't easy for me to put out videos, and for that I apologize. I'm still around and I still love my Arsenal, and I absolutely love the Premier League. So we are going to try and do a little bit better this semester, and we're going to try and do a lot better this season. I'm going to try and put out a lot more videos. And even if I just pop up to just say hello and to thank you all for still giving me enough support, because none of you have really left me since the last time I put a video, I want to come out and say I greatly appreciate your support and thank you so much for sticking with me. I will try and make it worth your while. But we are at a pivotal point of the season. Why? Because we are just starting. Everybody right now believes that their team will give them glory. Now, what is glory? It depends on what your team thinks glory is. Now, for an Arsenal, that could be a title run because it's been 2 or 3 seasons now that Arsenal have been continuously developing their talent and superseding what they did the season before. For a Manchester United, it could be a top 4 run. For Manchester City, it is to hold off both Liverpool and Arsenal, who are increasingly looking very ominous as the season is starting. And down there, you could be thinking about your Ipswich or your Leicesters. What do they want to do? They just want to survive. They just want to keep on having a crack at the most entertaining league in football. But at this point, I'm going to welcome you guys back. My name is Izzy. Thank you for the support that you've given me. And as always, if you like this video, please go ahead and hit that like and the subscribe button to let YouTube and everybody else know that you're enjoying this content. So what happened today? Arsenal managed to hold off Wolverhampton Wanderers in a very comfortable 2-0 victory. Now, it wasn't as easy for them in the middle of the game because Wolverhampton Wanderers are very well coached. I've said it many times on this channel, I am a huge admirer of Gary O'Neill and what he's able to do with his team. This is a man who took over Wolverhampton Wanderers with about 2-week notice before the season started last season. And so I have immense respect for him, and he is very well spoken. He's very tactically adept. We saw him have some very good results last season, notably against Chelsea and against Manchester City. He was one of only 3 teams to be able to take them down, and he took them down in a very tactically savvy way. Now, this was obviously going to be a very tough start for Wolves. Why? Because Arsenal are one of the 2 title favorites. Now, aside from Liverpool, who are having a little bit of an upheaval because they have a new manager, although they looked very good today against Ipswich Town, we know that Arsenal and Manchester City are the title favorites. And most people have either or to take this season's title. So in preparation for the season, Arsenal have signed Ricardo Calafiore, who started on the bench in this game, and tentatively they are rumored to be very close to signing Mikel Merino, who is a player that plays for Real Sociedad, a very, very good player who had a nice cameo during the Euros, and he scored the winning goal against Germany in the quarterfinals for Spain. So Arsenal are looking very good. And we all know that Mikel Arteta is a rabid tactician, and he was able to take down Wolves today with a very, very good start to the game. Wolves were always going to cause them some problems, and midway through the second half, when Arsenal were only 1-0 up after a Kai Havertz goal, it looked as though Wolves might be able to try and snatch something. But when Bukayo Saka was able to score in the 74th minute, it put the game in good perspective for Arsenal fans, rested a couple of nerves, most notably mine, and we were able to see Arsenal close out the game. Now, this is something that we're going to have to get used to, seeing Arsenal. There are going to be teams that are going to be very confident when they come up against Arsenal. They are not going to try and get on the front foot because Arsenal have developed a very good stylistic play. They hold on to the ball very well. They're very good at counterattacking. But one of the things that we saw Arsenal struggle with last season was their left-hand side of defense. And that's the reason why Calafiore and Yurian Timber's presence in the team is going to be very important. And we saw some of that today. Zinchenko, while a very good player on the ball, and while he does have a lot of good attributes, has a lot of defensive weaknesses. And if any team is going to be trying to exploit Arsenal, it would have been in that corner. Wolves weren't able to. And they did have a couple of good chances. Cunha had a shot that went just wide. And I do believe there was a header that David Raya was able to save in the first half while Arsenal were still 1-0 up. So there were some things that Arsenal needed to work on. There's still a little bit of rustiness in some of the players, but there's also a lot of good positive things to talk about. Martin Odegaard looks very sharp. He is extremely sharp. And then you look at Kai Havertz and what he was able to do, and Bukayo Saka, who's carrying on some of that good form from the Euros and from the end of last season. Well, Arsenal are looking very ominous. And the fact that the last goal that was scored last season was by Kai Havertz, and he's the person who opened their scoring this campaign, is also something that's emblematic of what Arsenal have been. The continuity that is going to be flowing from last season into this season is boding very well for them. They look like a team that is very capable of taking down Manchester City this season. Now, I am going to do my predictions eventually. I want to do them in a way that will take into account some of the signings that most of the teams are going to have. And I would like to try and keep it towards the end of the transfer window when most of the squads that we know are in front of us are going to be what's going to be settled for the rest of the season. And so for now, I'm going to try and limit any talk of who's going to finish top and who's going to finish bottom. Although I do have some preliminary thoughts and I do have my favorites as well. And of course, it's going to be either Manchester City, Arsenal, or Liverpool, because I think a lot of people are still writing off Liverpool. They still could have a fairy tale, who knows, because they have most of the players that they had from last season. And while they haven't signed anybody yet, I think that's a good sign. I'm not one of those people who's in the camp of you have to sign somebody and shake up the dressing room. And yes, it would be good to get somebody in to help some of the players that might have gone a bit stale towards the end of last season. I still think that Arne Slot deserves some time to figure out his squad. And I think that he's going to know what he needs to add and what he needs to subtract in order to be a good team. But overall, Arsenal looked very good. Wolverhampton Wanderers are not going to be a mug this season. They're going to be just as good as they were last season. I've seen some people think that they might be fighting with relegation, and I doubt that because Gary O'Neill is an extremely good tactician. And so I won't be surprised if Wolves will be somewhere around where they were last season. I'm going to think that maybe they're going to be somewhere mid-table. I think they're going to be comfortable enough to take care of what they weren't able to take care of last season. They did lose a couple of important players, Kilman and Pedro Neto, who, man, decided to go to Chelsea. He was a player I really wanted to come to Arsenal. But that might be something that Wolves might have to look into. But we all know that Gary O'Neill took over Wolves last season when they had lost a couple of players. They had lost Ruben Neves and they had lost some other people who were very good for them in previous seasons. But they were able to turn that season around and they had some very good scalps. As I mentioned before, they beat Manchester City and they beat Chelsea en route to a mid-table finish. So Wolves are not going to be any mugs. And we saw that today because some people had thought that it might be a much more comfortable victory for Arsenal, something in the region of 4 or 5-0. And I didn't think so. I predicted the game to be a 2-0 victory for Arsenal. And that's because I have extreme respect for Wolves and for how they're able to tactically take down some of the bigger sides. Overall, a very good result for Arsenal. They will need this going into their next coming game because they face Aston Villa, the team that pretty much denied us the title. And I will not lie that I do have a grudge against Aston Villa. And while I do have a good respect for them from a sporting sense, I absolutely want them to suffer this season. So it would be important for us to go and get a victory there next week because we have to build on what was a good end to last season. And we also need to get as many points as we can in the first 5 games of the season. We have an extremely tough start to the season with Manchester City and Tottenham on the horizon, and Brighton. We saw Brighton have a very good start today. And if you don't watch how other teams are starting the season, Arsenal might end up in a very poor start, because one of the things that Arsenal needs to do is to be somewhere within the region of about 5 to about 6 points closer to Manchester City, because they do have an extremely tough start. And you never know what kind of pace Pep Guardiola will decide to get into, because although Manchester City could be notoriously poor starters, we've seen them have that in recent seasons, they don't have the worst of starting games this season. And Manchester City are one of those teams who don't care who they face. They're just that good. And so whoever they face, they are looking at that as potential 3 points. Arsenal, on the other hand, have recently struggled against Aston Villa in recent seasons, and they've also struggled against Brighton in recent seasons. And we know that it was only last season that was the first time that they avoided a defeat against Manchester City since 2015-16. So it's going to be important for them to get a very good start to the season. Now, how next week's game is going to go is anyone's guess. Aston Villa started off today very well as well. They won 2-1 at the London Stadium against West Ham United. Although that was a game that you would have seen them win, they won it very well in the end, and they were well worth their victory. So if Arsenal want to get something down, they need to make sure they beat Aston Villa next week. Not only that, they need to exercise some of the demons from last season's defeats against Aston Villa. They need to take that pain, harness it, and take it to that game and make sure they annihilate Aston Villa. Now, that's easier said than done, and you absolutely know that Unai Emery is going to be looking to try and get one over his former team again. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think down in the comments. It was a very good match to watch. I think Arsenal are looking sharp. I think Wolves were very good in the game, although Arsenal are just that better. Arsenal have now stepped into that ring, that rarefied air of that team that is expected to win almost every game that they go into. So for now, we're just going to leave it at that. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. It's been your boy Izzy. I have missed you to no end. Thank you so much for all the support you've shown me. Thank you for still being there. Thank you for still being subscribed. And until next time, as always, peace.